Welcome to the podcast, Lighting the Educational Flame, created and produced by educator and author Mark Hoberman, owner and director of Grade Success Tutoring. The purpose of this program is to offer our listeners a variety of stories dealing with many interesting topics surrounding education. It is our hope that students and parents alike will benefit from the wide range of topics, including study skills, test prep, anti-bullying, sports, music, and more. A special aspect of our podcast is that the shows will also feature a teen guest host. We hope you enjoy our show, Lighting the Educational Flame.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Lighting the Educational Flame. I'm Mark Hoberman, and it's my pleasure to introduce today's returning guest host, SUNY Oswego Jr., Sammy Sandler. Sammy will be moving up to associate producer soon, and we are continuing to speak with high school and college students who wish to be guest hosts. Please email us at info@gradesuccess.com to inquire about being a guest host on our podcast, Lighting the Educational Flame. Our guest today is Sophia Salesky, a high school student from California. Sophia is an exceptional teenager who is going to speak to us about her participation in a student program called Beyond Differences. Sammy, it's so great to have you back on our show. And Sophia, thanks so much for being with us today. So Sammy Sandler, take it away.
Thank you, Mark, and it's a pleasure, as always, to be back on the podcast. We do so many great interviews, and I'm really excited to talk to Sophia today about all the great work she's already done at such a young age. So, Sophia, so you've done a lot of work with Beyond Differences. So can you tell our listeners what Beyond Differences is and how you got involved?
Of course. Beyond Differences is a nonprofit organization to help end social isolation in middle schools. So kids who feel left out or excluded, maybe during lunch or in the classroom. How I got involved with the organization is when I was in middle school, I loved to dress up. I showed up in a pink tutu and sparkly shoes every single day. That was my uniform. And as I got older and people started to change, and middle school is one of the hardest places for a lot of students because people start to change and they become a little bit more judgmental and you don't feel like you can really be yourself. So that is why I am now joining Beyond Differences, is to make sure that no student should ever have to feel that way and feel excluded or unwanted because they're different. We all want to celebrate our differences and then create happy communities.
And I think that's a great message, and I totally agree with you, especially about how tough middle school can be. I mean, just speaking for myself, I've run into some mean kids when I was in middle school, and, Beyond Differences, I think, is so unique in the fact that it's a student-led organization, and, how has being involved enhanced your own leadership skills as a student with other students?
Right. So our team board is 60 high school students, and every single year we work together on public speaking and communication and drafting up these wonderful stories to help educate and inform other middle schoolers on how to be inclusive. So it's really helped me in my public speaking skills, my writing skills, in just talking to people in general. It has opened up a lot of doors for me, especially this one. It's wonderful to be here. But, yeah, that's really what the organization has given me in an educational viewpoint.
And what year of school are you going into next year, this fall?
So I am a rising senior, so sadly this will be my last year on the team board of the organization, but I absolutely plan on coming back and helping with the organization. My parents are currently on the board of directors. We are very involved with the organization. My older sister was on the team board when she was in high school. I love this organization with all my heart, and it is such a huge piece of my life. And I really think that, all schools all around the country, all around the world should also be involved with it because it's just so amazing.
I completely agree. I think it's a wonderful program, and that's why I want to know, what advice would you give to students who want to get involved in their schools, and how can they get involved with Beyond Differences specifically?
So we have a website. Just look up Beyond Differences, and we'll pop right up. You can start we have these national days these national initiatives that you can take and bring to your school. So we have a couple of them. There's No One Eats Alone Day, which is usually on Valentine's Day, and it has to do with making sure everyone at lunch feels included and you get to meet and talk to new people. We also have a new program called Know Your Classmates, which is actually a curriculum that teachers can teach in their classrooms, and it teaches about identity and diversity, whether that be class, race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, and really brings up all these topics. And we believe that with these initiatives, students will then be able to learn and be educated about people's differences, then feel comfortable with them, and be more comfortable with accepting and including others that may not be the exact same as them. So that's really how you can get involved with your schools. Also, there's plenty of ways to donate to the program online. We have a bunch of ways that you can get involved. Just give us a look.
Absolutely, and I love how you talked about diversity, because that leads perfectly in my next question. I personally am a broadcasting major, so communication is my wheelhouse. The biggest question I was wondering is, how do you navigate intercultural communication when trying to engage fellow students? Because, at least in my experience, a lot of times there would be kids that maybe spoke other languages that, would feel alienated maybe from the rest of the student body. So how does Beyond Differences try to, kind of break that language barrier and really, navigate that intercultural communication well?
Absolutely. So that is the goal with Know Your Classmates, is we have a bunch of different lesson plans for specifically people from different cultures, and it gives students an open space and questions that they can ask each other so they can really understand one another and one another's cultures and their backgrounds and identities and where they really come from. So with that, then we hope that students will then feel less scared of the unknown, and now they will be educated on all these different cultures, on where these people are coming from, and then hopefully we'll move forward into inclusiveness and celebrating the different cultures that they are.
And I think that's a beautiful thing. And, you talked about diversity and, integration and inclusion. So those obviously must be some of the core values of Beyond Differences. Are there any other core values that you guys really try and emulate through in the schools?
So in the schools, our big one is promoting social inclusion, however that may be. If that's just being the one to, if you see somebody that is sitting alone or, may feel alone or not speaking, going up to them and talking to them. Another way that we really, one of our core values is, standing up and also there's there's also another initiative that's being kind online. So whether that be taking a stand that way, and instead of posting a mean comment, posting something that's nice. So we do a bunch of different things. The core values are always be kind, listen to one another, include.
And that's spectacular. And I guess this is a joint question to both you and Mark. I'd like you, Sophia, to answer it first and get your take on it. But do you believe that better inclusion and social cohesion leads to better learning in the classroom?
Oh, 100%. So there are a bunch of studies that we have actually done that social inclusion improves the way you absorb information in the classroom, and it also improves your mental, physical, and emotional health. So people who have been excluded tend to have a lot more mental health problems, have a lot more physical problems. They find it hard to focus in the classroom because there's a lot of distraction when it comes to feeling left out, feeling these emotions. So when we promote social inclusion, we also promote a healthier and more successful learning environment.
Mark?
Well, it's interesting. As I'm listening, I'm thinking about this as a school teacher. And, this to me, and I spoke to some of the people at Beyond Differences, And this is almost like a precursor to bullying, like a prequel, if you will, because I think that once you start dealing with bullying, I think you may have been starting too late. I think this inclusion versus exclusion training that Beyond Differences does is really excellent because it really works in concert, I think, with cultural respect. And I'm in a school where there are a lot of people, from other countries coming in, and they need more than anybody else. First of all, there's a language barrier. Now they're new and they don't know a lot of people. And something like this could really help be at the forefront of them feeling comfortable. And as Sophia said, mentally and emotionally, it takes its toll on people when they're excluded or they even feel excluded. And a lot of schools don't realize that if there's not bullying going on, this exclusion is really hurting people. So that's why I think that what they do is an excellent thing. And it's kind of new because most schools I know deal with bullying and they really don't hit it early enough. And that's what I think that Sophia is doing with the people at Beyond Differences.
I completely agree. And Sophia, more from a broad standpoint, how has being involved in a club enhanced your high school experience?
Well, Beyond Differences, the team board that I'm a part of, which is the original one, it started in Marin County, which is right across the bridge from San Francisco. It has given me another community to come back to and teach me how to really walk the walk and not just talk the talk. So while I've been in high school, sadly, social isolation doesn't just end in middle school. We're hoping to target middle schools so then later on in life it won't have to be something you experience throughout the rest of your age or while you age. But so high school, what I'm doing right now is coming from Beyond Differences and bringing it to my high school. There's still people being excluded. There are still people who feel socially isolated. So as a team board member of Beyond Differences, I have given myself the opportunity to walk the walk and really teach others in my high school about including people. And I'm the one that goes up to people who are sitting alone still in my high school cafeteria and sitting with somebody and having a conversation with them just to make sure that nobody ever, even in my high school, something that I have full control over, nobody has to feel alone.
Sammy, if I could jump in real quick, two things come to mind. As many of our listeners know, I also do camp consulting and orientation staff training at camps. And it's interesting because I mention, probably too quickly now that I think about it, about people being isolated, especially at sleepaway camps and eating alone at camp. And when I did the training, we broke for lunch, and I sat alone just because I wanted to think and get my notes together for the next workshop. And on purpose, 8 of the counselors sat next to me. And it was just such a wonderful feeling, so I know exactly what Sophia is talking about. But, Sophia, I want to ask you one important question that I think any of our students who are listening, and certainly teachers, what do you guys do when it comes to cyberbullying, particularly with social media? I think it's so rampant out there. So what are some quick hints or strategies you could give us to really lower the occurrence of cyberbullying? Because that's really huge today.
Right. So we suggest one of the things that we've always said is take 10 deep breaths, even before you post, before you comment back, before you react to something in some way. 10 deep breaths, because it'll give you some clarity on what you should do next. Second thing, absolutely tell an adult. Talk to somebody, a counselor, a parent, a trusted friend, something like that, just to get it off your chest so you don't feel there's so much weight put on you. The third thing is, best thing to do is turn it off. That is the only way that you for sure can just make sure that it's clear and out of your way. But to prevent even from happening, we've talked to a bunch of different social media websites, including Ask.fm, and talked to them and informed them on the amount of cyberbullying that has been happening on their site. And we have made a huge point of trying to get them to censor certain words like kill yourself, certain phrases to help prevent cyberbullying from happening on certain social media platforms. So Beyond Differences has had a lot of impact on those platforms, and we plan on continuing helping students who have been cyberbullied and preventing cyberbullying from even happening.
Excellent. That's a great response. Thank you.
Yeah, and I really think you guys are doing a real good service, especially because one of the big things that I personally think is a problem, especially having gone through high school and middle school and, maybe not being the thinnest kid, and people may have reminded me of it from time and time again, people, especially kids, a lot of these programs sometimes won't admit that the bullying is happening. I think Beyond Differences, from what I gather, is doing a good job of saying, we know that this isolation is happening, and we're really going to do a good job to stop it. And, I think the first part of solving a problem is addressing it, and I think you guys do a wonderful job of that. But I was wondering, do you ever get any pushback from students that, maybe look at, maybe the kid's sitting alone and you go sit with them and they say, I don't want you to sit with me, get defensive or something. Do you guys ever get pushback from students?
Absolutely. And at that point, you have to be mindful that everyone is their own person and some people do want their space, and you have to absolutely respect that. But if someone is really feeling social isolation, majority of the time, they'll be open to having a conversation with somebody or having somebody sit down with them. But like you said, Beyond Differences knows and is very, very aware of the social isolation that is happening in every middle school, because every single one of our team board members has written a story about them or a friend that has been socially isolated, whether they've been socially isolated, been a bystander, or have inflicted social isolation on somebody else. And our whole organization was actually based on a certain situation. Our founder, Laura Thomas, her daughter, Lily, was extremely social isolated in middle school because she had a face deformation. And later, when she was later in high school, when she had just graduated, she had actually passed away. Not because she didn't inflict any harm on herself, but she did pass away in her sleep, and her friends had no idea that Lily had felt this way in middle school and in high school and wanted to do something about it. And that is how Beyond Differences began.
And I think it's great to take a situation and make some good out of it. And the last and quite possibly most important question, I know we may have gone over it before, but again, for our listeners that want to get involved, how can they bring this to their school and their neck of the woods?
So looking up Beyond Differences, beyonddifferences.org, we have a website where you can get started. It has a bunch of links for you if you want to start the National Initiative Days at your own middle schools. We are more than welcome to talk to you. Just look us up. We will absolutely be there to help.
And Sophia, I think it's amazing that you're doing all this stuff, especially just as a rising senior in high school. I think it's really just spectacular getting involved that early, and I think you're going to do some great things. And I just want to say thank you so much for being with us today. This is Sammy Sandler on behalf of Mark Hoberman, thanking you for listening to Lighting the Educational Flame. To contact us, email us at info@gradesuccess.com. That is gradesuccess.com. Thank you again for listening, and we look forward to you joining us again soon.
Thank you for listening to Lighting the Educational Flame with Mark Hoberman. To contact Mark, email him at info@gradesuccess.com.